Brian, is this our vacation?
Yeah.
Oh. Are we trash?
Kinda.
Oh.
Cause it's vacation time, brothers. Vacation time, brothers. Vacation. Vacation.
Gotta get up, gotta get out, gotta get down. Time to go out and have some fun.
Tune in, move on. Bust out.
Gotta break away from this day to day. Gotta get away on the summer vacation.
Tune in, move on.
Yeah, yeah.
Bust out.
Gotta get up, gotta get out, gotta get down. Time to go out and have some fun.
Tune in, move on. Bust out.
Gotta break away from this day to day. Gotta get away on the summer vacation.
Tune in, move on.
Hey, yeah,
Bust out.
yeah.
Hey, Nate, how's it going?
Brent Chittenden, you son of a bitch. I haven't talked to you in ages. My friend, how are you?
I'm good. So, listen, you and I do so many podcasts at this point that we're monetizing our friendship. I feel that we need a break. Like, you and me will just go out, no podcast, no nothing, just go out on like a bit of a road trip, bit of an adventure. I found something on Groupon. Believe it or not.
Groupon, you say?
Yeah. And I know the last time this happened, you ended up in space watching WCW from like the year 2000. I can guarantee you I will not make you watch WCW from the year 2000.
Okay, I'm intrigued, Brent, but as you said, like we're both crazy busy with the podcasts and with our shoot jobs, man. I don't know if I have time to take a break right now, even as great as that sounds, man. Shout out to Groupon.
Just pack your bags, some shorts, t-shirts, maybe some knee pads or some shin pads. When we get there, you'll know why.
All right, so I'm looking at my schedule right now, and actually I do have a lot of PTO in the bank, Brent. So let me make a few calls, and you know what? You're convincing me. You're convincing me, brother. Let's do this, man. Let's go on this once in a lifetime opportunity. But where are we going though? Like I just don't want to agree to this without knowing where we're going, Brent.
Fellas, we going on a boat ride to Kung Fu Island.
Every 5 years, the best fighters in its ranks would face each other in full contact, with one winner emerging as the superior warrior, the champion.
See one of us? The American Ninja. American! What do you want?
It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
Welcome, loyal listeners, to Kung Fu Island, a joint production between Kings of Sport and the True North Nerds Podcasting Network. It's Brent finally teaming up with Nate. This is decades in the making, I feel, at this point.
Yeah, this is the crossover. This is the mashup. This is the collaboration that people have been waiting for years, Brent. I feel like, much like Cody Devontae Rhodes had to go on this journey, had to go on this odyssey for years to finally finish his story. You and I been friends for a long time, been guests on each other's shows over the years, and now we're finally collaborating on a project. And unlike Cody, though, we're not going to finish a story. We're going to start a story here on Kung Fu Island. So I'm excited to not only talk about the subject matter, brother, but to finally be doing a regular show with you, or at least a semi-regular show, because we're busy, man.
So the idea is this is going to be a mini series. First episode is going to be free, and then, like any good addiction, you will have to pay for the rest of it.
So the first hit is free, baby.
Yeah. The idea came about with Nate and I talking, just due to an offhanded memory I posted, where Nate was unaware that I had spoken to one Michael Jai White, who we will get into a little bit later. And that like just completely evolved into us talking about kung fu movies, specifically for at least the first series of this, movies that take place in or around a kung fu island.
And I think, like a lot of my podcasts, Brent, sometimes the best ideas are ideas that are sparked through Twitter conversations, particularly Twitter conversations, at least on my end, that have come after a few drinks, a few adult beverages, if you will, much like this Mai Tai that I'm sipping here as we're on this boat going to Kung Fu Island.
It was just an offhanded comment that I'm like, oh, I can turn this into something, planting the seeds.
Yes, and usually I'm the one doing the pitching of podcast ideas, and this time Brent was like, there might be something here, and we took a little while, took a couple months, and molded this clay. Brent and I were much like Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze back in the day, and we were just molding this clay that would become Kung Fu Island while the Righteous Brothers played in the background, and so now we are here. With this show, and I'm excited for this first episode, Brent, because as you mentioned, like when you talked about speaking with Michael Jai White back in the day, like immediately I was like, wow, and also I was like a little bit jealous, Brent. I'm not gonna lie, a little bit jealous because this is a guy.
Yeah,
you're talking about. Like,
I did that interview like years ago.
It's for the Outlaw Johnny Black, right?
Yeah, so it was for the Kickstarter that they did the first time that failed. Not due to any help in my promotion for it, but it just didn't make, like, they were asking for a lot of money.
Yeah.
But eventually he got his financing and got the movie made. The one thing I remember the most, one was he was super nice and like up for talking about anything. The second was so it was through like, I guess basically it was a phone interview done through a system, so I couldn't get like whatever number he was actually calling me from or whatever, like an intermediary. But they had the best hold music I had ever heard at the time. It was a made up country song about sitting on hold waiting for the call to come through.
He probably had that set up that way, though, Brent, so you and other folks that would be interviewing him wouldn't be able to call him back later and interrupt his kung fu. Like, nobody should interrupt Michael Jai White's kung fu.
Especially, like, I thought, like, Joe Rogan talking about him, where, like, Rogan had come into a gym they both work out at a day after Michael Jai White had, and Michael Jai White had like accidentally kicked the heavy bag off of the chain that was at the gym or something like that. Like, speaking of which, I guess we should actually mention the movie that we're going to be discussing in this first round, which is Black Dynamite.
Dynamite!
You've already got my attention, Brent. This is this is one of my favorites, Brent, and that's why I was so excited, man. That night we talked initially about this, because for those that have not watched this film, stop right now, pause this podcast, watch the film, and then come back and listen to Brent and I discuss this film, because it's easily, Brent, in my personal list of like the top 10 best comedies of all time. Like, just the care, the attention to detail, the vibe, the music, like 10 out of 10 all across the board.
In order to do parody good, you have to pay attention to those details. And I honestly, like, there's going to be some people out there who are like, oh, that's sacrilege. But this movie's up there with like Airplane and Blazing Saddles.
Yep.
Like, it just how well it's executed. I had forgotten when I did the rewatch the other day of like, this movie doesn't overstay its welcome either. Like it's a crisp run all the way through. The jokes are funny, and there's nothing that goes too long. There's no jokes that are like just like hit flat. It's just firing in all cylinders all the way through.
Yeah, there's just that care that you said, Brent, the attention to detail. This is one of my favorite films to watch the commentary track for, and that's how I watched it this time around. I've seen this movie so many times. I was like, you know what? Let me go back and listen to the commentary track again. And just hearing Byron Menz and Michael Jai White talk about, finding clothes at a thrift store that looked like they were straight out of the 70s, or, the way Adrian Young produced the music to make you think that might have been an actual track from the 70s that I missed, because it sounded so authentic, and just the little things that showed you that these guys aren't just making fun of a subject. Because I think that's a trap that I think a lot of filmmakers kind of fall into sometimes with comedy, Brent, especially with parody. It's like the secret is, how can we have fun with this without making fun of the thing, right? And I think with Black Dynamite, like, there's a love for it. Like, yes, this is some of those movies were crazy and ridiculous, and like, why is this black actor who is a Shakespearean trained actor playing a pimp? Like, it doesn't make any sense, but it does because it was the 70s and that was the only role he could get. And just details like that, Brent. Like, every time I watch the film, like, there's stuff I forget. So I think one of my favorite jokes, Brent, in this entire film is a joke that's not even in the film. It's a joke that was used in the promotional material.
Okay.
So this film, like, I remember watching on YouTube, and they're like, coming this summer, 3-time All-Pro NFL running back for the Indianapolis Colts, Ferrante Jones, is Black Dynamite. And so when you're watching the movie, it's not Michael Jai White playing Black Dynamite.
Yeah.
It's Michael Jai White playing Ferrante Jones, who is playing Black Dynamite. And so you'll get moments where he notices when the other actors miss their mark, or like he just kind of takes awkward pauses. And it's just like the commitment and the levels to detail in this, Brent, just makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, I think it's the scene where one of the militants reads his stage instructions.
One of my favorite lines in the entire film. He's when Black Dynamite bursts through the door, and then you see the militant step into the frame. And he's like, startled, the militant's turn. And then you see Michael Jai White playing Ferrante Jones kind of have this look on his face. And then he's like, who's in charge here? And then the militant's like, sarcastically, I'm in charge.
Yeah, it's that look, because I think it's in the commentary or the making of. He mentions that, like, it's him looking to the fake director, like the director of the movie of Black Dynamite. Like, are we using this cut? Oh, okay. Or the fight in the pool hall where a bullhorn slaps the guy, and the guy's like, motherfucker, and then it suddenly cuts, and it's a completely different actor because some actual fight went down. Yep.
There's even like actual mistakes in the film where there's a scene where there's a shootout outside of what would become Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, and the criminals roll up in the car, and the driver actually forgot to put the car in park. And so, like, it's still rolling for a few seconds after they're supposed to be stopped, and they just left it in. Like, they just left it in because they're like, you know what, that works.
They just left it in because that happened on those movies. So I don't know, like, I don't know if it's a my generation white guy thing. But weird, like, because I was discussing this with my boss actually not too long ago. He's like a week older than I am, and we both went through, like, in our late teens, early 20s, this like run through blaxploitation movies. Like I like, Black Belt Jones, Hot Potato, like all of those movies I sat down and watched. I think he said his local video store listed them under super action as the genre.
Super action.
So I like when you see, like, when you've gone through all these movies, you see, like, you know, Dolomite is definitely one that I remember, like the boom mic coming in, and that, like, they made that into these, like, into Black Dynamite, and it just is so well done. How did you find this movie originally?
So it's funny because I hadn't heard of this movie at all, and there was a radio show that I used to listen to religiously back in the day here in Virginia called the Mike and Bob Show. Okay. It was hosted by Mike Powers, who's still on radio in this area, and Bob France, who has been on the Kings of Sport from time to time. He was actually our first test subject on episode 0 of the Kings of Sport that was eaten up by the podcast gods. And so, like, they had one of the best shows ever. Like, I always say, Brent, if I could have wished success on anybody else other than myself, it would have been those two guys. Because I think like they're just two random ass white dudes, both from New York, that ended up in Virginia, and they were able to, like, build out the show with just all these crazy characters and personalities from different races and ages. And, like, they had an old guy that was always on the show. And then, you know, they had open phone Fridays, which was where I first, like, I called them up on open phones and went on some rant about wrestling or something. And we just vibed. And, you know, like, I became like a rotating member of, like, the people that would call into the show. And they were just always out there in terms of, like, we're going to go for the funniest thing, even if it's the dumbest thing. We're going to go for the funny 9 times out of 10. But they, like I said, they also had a very diverse cast, and it never felt forced. And so one week they were talking about movies that they were watching, and I believe it was Alfredo Torres, who was one of the co-hosts, and he was like, "You dudes ever see this movie called Black Lightning?" And they started talking about it. I'm like, that movie sounds amazing. And so I went, and I think I might even had to order it online because I couldn't find it in any of the video stores around. So I ordered it, watched it, and I think the next week I called back on the show and I was like, dudes, like, this movie is amazing. And we talked about Black Dynamite for like 20 minutes on Open Phone Friday. So that's where I first found the movie. And then, like I said, Brent, like, I've watched this multiple times since then. Like, it's probably, I'd say, over the last 15 years, I've watched this movie at least 3 times a year since then, Brent, at various points.
It's good. Like, you know, I found this at Walmart of all places on my way. I was on the way to visit friends, and I stopped at a Walmart for, like, I think drinks or something. Like, you know, it was a bit of a drive, so probably stopped for, like, a pop and a pee kind of thing, because Walmart washrooms always open, never great, but always open. And it was there, and I'm like, what is this? And I want to say I maybe heard, like, bits and pieces from, like, Ain't It Cool News and stuff like that, which would have been kind of the big movie pushers for our generation at the time. And I'm like, well, looks like all right. And it was like, even then, I think it was value priced at probably like $10 or $15. I'm like, for that, you know, have a couple drinks and it'll be funny no matter what this movie is. And it turned out to be a really good film. And especially, like, at that point, I knew Michael Jai White from 2 things. One was that Tyson movie that HBO put out. And the other was Spawn, which is not good.
Yeah, no, it is not.
That is a movie that, like, people talk about, like, Batman and Robin being a bad superhero movie. Spawn is worse.
Here's the thing, and we're going to take a lot of tangents, dear listener, on this trip to Kung Fu Island. And this is why I always say, Brent, no matter how quote-unquote bad a Marvel or MCU movie can get these days, we have it so much better than the days of Batman and Robin and Spawn. And as much as I secretly love this movie, I know it's not a good movie. Blade Trinity. Like, there were so many bad superhero movies back in the day to even fix your face to say, oh, The Marvels is the worst superhero movie ever, tells me you haven't watched superhero movies.
Yeah. Come back to me when you watch that straight-to-video Captain America movie that came out like decades ago, where his mask has rubber ears and he walks from Alaska to Florida in like 5 minutes. So, with this movie, there was a couple things that came up while I was like going through that I hadn't noticed before. And the one that I'm really curious about, and I don't remember it being in the commentary track, the phrase "ankles in it," is that an actual thing that people say, or did they just develop that for this film?
Yeah, so I don't want to mischaracterize the phrase, but to me, I've always heard it growing up, especially from like older relatives, uncles, aunts, grandmas, grandpas. Whenever you're going to fully commit yourself to it, you put your ankles in it.
Oh, okay.
And so like it sounds, again, I don't know the etymology of this phrase, Brent Chittenden. I didn't come here to take a deposition, but I think it's like an old black Southern slang term. Like
okay.
It's kind of the cousin to like, so you can either put your ankles in it, or, and this is one of those phrases that means the opposite from what it sounds like. Say my aunt cooked an amazing pot of greens. You're like, oh man, Auntie put her foot in that.
Oh, okay.
Because she put the extra effort into it.
There was that, and what was the other thing that there's just so many like little things in this that I like, but I also didn't realize that the guy who plays his partner in crime for a little bit, Saeed, is Phil Morris, not the voice actor Phil Morris, a different one, who was on Seinfeld.
Jackie Childs.
I didn't realize it was the same guy.
Yeah, he was on Seinfeld, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, but I believe he was also on Supergirl. Was he on Supergirl?
He might have been. I know
think
who you're talking about.
Playing one of the Martians.
Yeah.
I want to say he was on.
I want to say
No. I'm sorry. He did play Martian Manhunter, but it wasn't on Supergirl. It was on Smallville.
Oh, okay.
He played Martian Manhunter on Smallville back in the day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, guy's got to work.
Yes, and he's really good. Like, I feel like there's so many good actors and actresses in this film, Brent. Like you mentioned Phil Morris, but I think my favorite scene, like, and it's tough to say this film that is filled with amazing scenes. Because again, I'll probably 10 minutes from now tell you another scene is my favorite scene. But my favorite scene at this very moment, Brent, is the Pimp Council scene, where you've got Arsenio Hall and you've got who's our guy from Reno 911? Cedric Yarborough.
Yeah. And Brian McKnight for some random reason.
Yes. And there's like some line where they're talking of, the pimps have gathered to talk about what they can do to keep business going. And one of the head pimp gives like this amazing speech filled with gravitas about how pimping is going to keep going until the world spins off of its axis and floats into space. And then there's some line where I think Cedric Yarborough, who's playing a pimp named Chocolate Giddy Up, says something about, we need to work on our physical outlook for the next year. And Arsenio Hall's like, no, it's fiscal with an F. It's just the dumbest thing. Like there's a pimp that looks like Captain Kangaroo named Captain Kangaroo Pimp.
Yeah, Captain Kangaroo. And like it's a joke that comes out of nowhere. And that's like what the guys who did Airplane, that was like their shtick in a lot of their movies, is every once in a while you would just have this dumb weird joke about like Captain Kangaroo Pimp, and then he puts his hand up. That whole scene's really and the whole part with the Black Dynamite barges in, and it's like, just going to tell you all that I'm not going to allow drugs be sold in our community. But Black Dynamite, I sell drugs to the community.
Yeah, that scene is amazing, and again, like I'm deep into the Black Dynamite lore, which is a crazy thing to say about a film that is a singular entity, and the lore consists of like 10 YouTube videos around the film and the commentary. But they actually went and spun Cedric Yarborough off into a bunch of like PSAs.
Really?
on YouTube. It's like, hi, I'm Chocolate Giddy Up here for fighting smack in the communities, and we're here to help kids stay off of drugs. And they've got Adrian Young's soulful music in the background, fighting smack in our communities. And it's just it's the perfect blend, I think, Brent, of just ridiculous dumb stuff with really well thought out comedy. Like again. My favorite scene in the movie, Brent, stop me if you heard this one, but it's when they're at the diner and they go on this long speech, and Tommy Davidson, who's great in this movie, Tommy Davidson from In Living Color, amongst other things, goes on this rant, and he's like, M&M's melt in your mouth, not in your hand, and they go through this whole thing, and then finally they figure out that the plot of this film is tied to Anaconda malt liquor, which is a little commercial they showed at the beginning of the film, kind of parodying the old Colt 45 commercials. And spoiler alert, Anaconda malt liquor has chemicals in it that shrink black men's members, which makes them less powerful and less formidable to Richard Nixon and the white men in charge. Richard Nixon is in this movie, Brent Chittenden.
Yes, Richard Nixon. His wife gets backhanded through a china cabinet in it. I actually should say that too. Is I really like again, it goes to the commitment of the bit. What Michael Jai White did with the action scenes in this, because he says it. I think it's in the commentary or the behind the scenes. Is that he based chunks off of different blaxploitation characters and actors from that original time period. Like the key eye that he does is definitely based off of like the stuff that from like Black Belt Jones. That's why it's that like low noise, and
it's a lot of Jim Kelly in Black Dynamite.
It's kind of a shame that he isn't in the movie somewhere.
Yeah, that would have been great.
The other thing is that they shot this movie on like a film negative that was garbage. That's why like all the coloring is like oversaturated and darker in spots and has like that grain to it. They picked one that was used because it was cheap in like 1970, like 3 to 5 kind of thing. But it was only used for like a 1 or 2 year period, and only by like productions that had no money. So,
like the commitment to the bit, so to speak. Like if we're going to make a parody of blaxploitation movies, we're not going to skimp out on it. And I don't want this to sound negative, Brent, towards another film, but it's gonna sound negative because I'm making the comparison. And this is a film that I actually like, but I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker from Keenan Ivory Wayans has a very, similar kind of conceit. Like, this is a modern day blaxploitation film, but it's much more zany and it's a little more modern than Black Dynamite, which is like, we're going to do the blaxploitation parody, but we're going to stick with it. Like, we're not going to, bring modern things into this. We're going to stay as authentic as we can with modern, in this modern age to that era of cinema. And yeah, as much as I like I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, like this is miles away in terms of quality, in my opinion.
I think part of it might be too because they it does come out of like this was Michael Jai White's sort of baby from the get-go. But he is like, when you see him in anything, he just looks like a serious dude. Like that like line where the woman's like, oh, are you going to smile at me? I am smiling. And like that like really sums up what like he kind of featured in like movies, especially if you ever see like any of the straight to video stuff that he had kind of been doing around that period. And like I think that's part of what makes this work is like he been like born in the 50s or 60s, he would have been doing those blaxploitation movies. He would have been like in like Hot Potato 2 with Jim Brown and Jim Kelly and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I love about there's a lot of things I love about Black Dynamite, Brent. Like, this is how great this movie is. This podcast is called Kung Fu Island, Brent Chittenden, and we ain't even got to Kung Fu Island yet, brother. But there's the look of the film, there's the acting in the film, but I think the other component is the music. And the music was composed by Adrian Young, who was, I guess, half of the musical team that brought the music to Luke Cage to life. It was Ali Shaheed from A Tribe Called Quest and Adrian Young, and they really gave you that blaxploitation sound for Luke Cage. And there's moments here where, you know, at the beginning of the movie, where Black Dynamite finds out his brother Jimmy got shot in a drug deal gone bad, and the music's playing, and Black Dynamite's at the graveside, and this Jimmy's dead. He was shot over a bad drug deal. Like, and that's what they did back then. Like, the song is gonna tell you what you're gonna see in this film or what you just saw. And I think, to your point, Brent, this was his baby, and you can tell like the care and the love for the subject matter kind of comes through in the film. And I think that's why it's so funny, because it's like, yeah, nobody can roast you better than your family because they know you so well. And it's like, nobody can tell this story, I think, better than Michael Jai White, because he has such an appreciation for the subject matter.
Yeah, and definitely like that ends up bleeding through onto this movie a lot. Like, and that's why it bears repeating. It's so good. There is some interesting character choices that I noticed with Michael Jai White in the movie, and like most of them come out of like his sense of humor a little bit. I found it interesting, like the whole reason why there's the shootout with the Roscoe's Chili and Donuts mascot is because he does not like mascots, apparently. Like, he doesn't like people in those like outfits, so he's always wanted to beat one up in a movie, and that's how he worked it in.
The donuts don't wear alligator shoes.
I found it interesting that I don't know why it is, and for whatever reason it struck me, is out of him and his compatriots in the movie and the black militants and everything, Black Dynamite doesn't use the N-word. And everybody else does, but Black Dynamite doesn't, for whatever reason. And in fact, he only swears like, I think like 2 or 3 times. One is out of character. It's when he gets interrupted on set. And then like as a character, the Black Dynamite character only swears like once or twice. Like he's like almost a prototypical Rock in this movie in some ways, in terms of how he carries himself, except he is allowed to have sexuality where most of the Rock's characters do not.
Yes, that's something we've talked about on the Rocky Maivia Picture Show, how asexual Hollywood tends to make Dwayne Johnson in his films, or maybe it's a choice by Dwayne himself.
I would say it's got to be a choice, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's got to have enough weight to throw around.
I mean, spoiler alert to when we're recording this episode, like, you know, he's got to work on locking up that nomination for the GOP in 2028, Brent.
Oh, God. The sad part is you're right.
He's all about family values. I think what you're saying about the character of Black Dynamite, it also kind of follows through to the cartoon, which aired on the Cartoon Network for a couple seasons, where Black Dynamite is almost seen as this mythic figure within the Black community. Of the show, where kids look up to him, old people admire him, you know, everybody, like he's almost like Captain America, like he's very Steve Rogers-esque in the cartoon. And I think they kind of pulled some of that from the film, where you're right, like he only curses a couple of times, Like I think one of my favorite lines, and it's just random as hell, is when he talks about the little boy. I don't know if he was Korean or Vietnamese. He's like dying in front of him, and he's like he said some kind of Korean shit or something like that. And then Black Dynamite's impersonation of what the little boy said is hilarious. But I don't know in these modern times, Brent, if you could just be out here mimicking people's voices all willy nilly.
That might be one of the last sort of movies to get away with that type of joke. Like I agree. I don't think you'd be able to get away with that now. It is kind of funny, but I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, like he does say something, and I can't remember.
But it's not what the little boy says.
But like when he's impersonating it sounds like there's a line where it sounds like it's made up, but it's actually like in an Asian language that I guess through martial arts that Michael Jai White has picked up a little bit over the years.
Yeah, I think they say it on the commentary, like what he actually says, but I can't remember it right now.
And also, before we get to the Kung Fu Island part, what is your opinion on the evolution of Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles that they came up with, that had to start somewhere, and for some reason they started with chili and donuts?
Yes, yeah.
Is that a good precursor to Chicken and Waffles?
I'm surprised Roscoe's was able to stay in business long enough after starting with chili and donuts, because that's like nobody wants, especially nobody in the hood is really out here like, you know what, chili and donuts, that's what we want to feed our community. But I love how we got like a little backstory, origin story for Roscoe's, and again, like that diner scene, where Tommy Davidson, like Tommy Davidson does some of the best bits, and as he should, because he's one of the more seasoned or experienced comedians in the film. Like when we first meet him, he's at his beauty salon. He's like, I'm running things, and Black Dynamite chases him all across the city. And then when we get to the diner scene where he's kind of joined the team, Cream Corn has joined the team. He's giving his order to the waitress before we even get to like when they're doing the chalkboard scene. Yeah. Where he's like, I want 2 sausage links, split down the middle, smush fried, put an egg on top of it, cut it diagonal or something like that, man. And then the waitress is like, we got chili and donuts. And it's just like, Tommy Davidson is somebody who I think, he's obviously had some personal issues over his life that he talked about, but I think Tommy Davidson is always good whenever he shows up in something, even if the movie is not great. Like Juwanna Man, we talked about this on the Kings of Sport a couple months ago. Juwanna Man is not a great movie or a great portrayal of the WNBA, but Tommy Davidson is great in that movie.
Yeah, there are actors out there who are just like, they're good even when the movie's crap. Kevin Kline's one of those actors for me. Like anytime he shows up, he's usually good. Just sometimes the movie he's in is garbage. The one thing I will say though is with his introduction, he's running things and he's like, cream corn. That's what they call me because I'm smooth. I've had cream corn. It's chunky. Yeah, like I really actually like the stuff. I haven't had it in a while because my wife doesn't like it, but it was a staple of my childhood growing up. It's like it's in syrup or stuff. It is like cream corn in the South, different than what we were getting in cans up here, and it's actually like smooth and pureed or something.
Like the chowdery kind of part of it, I guess if you separate it from the corn, it's smooth. But like no, cream corn as an entire entity, like you're saying, Brent, it's lumpy. It's not smooth at all.
So take off 1 point, Tommy Davidson. Your improv on that one was a little rough.
The way he turns around, I think he gets his point back though the way he turns around, because he's like, I'm running things, he's singing, he's filing his nails, and as he spins around in the salon chair, he sees Black Dynamite. He's like, oh shit! It just runs out of the salon.
That action sequence, I actually wanted to mention too. The whole chase scene. I wasn't sure if they were doing it for a joke or it's just because Michael Jai White is enough of an athlete that most of the chase scene, he is like, you can tell he has to slow down a little bit because he is like almost neck and neck with Tommy Davidson,
who is wearing the smock from the salon almost as a cape. So he could grab the cape and easily catch him. But yeah, I think Michael Jai White had to pace himself to match Tommy's stride because Tommy is as great a comedian as he is not the athlete that Michael Jai White is.
Yeah, Michael Jai White's a beast. Like, still is. You see like his training videos and stuff like that he puts out there every once in a while, and it's like
he should be in like James Gunn, Kevin Feige. He should be in some of your movies.
He's mentioned that in like I came across, it was a recent interview for when Outlaw Johnny Black came out. It kind of surprises me. He has a very not a big part, but he has a part in The Dark Knight, and like he does.
That's right. Yeah, the Joker scene where he tells him how he got the smile to the gangster.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising nothing happened for him after that, but like larger, because it's a good scene and he plays a good heavy.
And that's the thing. Like, he's not just physically right for some of these movies, but he can act. And so I think I don't know what character he would be, Brent, but I'm sure there's a character in DC or Marvel that Michael Jai White could play.
Maybe sacrilegious, or maybe he's too old. Jon Stewart.
I think maybe a few years ago that could have been a good fit. He might be aging out of Jon Stewart, even though black don't crack, as we all know, Brent. So
I was gonna say he like
Ernie Hudson is Ernie Hudson, 75 damn years old, was the best looking original Ghostbuster in the latest Ghostbusters movie.
Oh, dude, he could almost play Jon Stewart. He could play if they do they could do 3 stages. I don't know who you'd get for 20-year-old something, but he's 40-year-old, you get Michael Jai White, and then Ernie Hudson is old retired Jon Stewart.
Funny connection. He actually kind of sort of played Jon Stewart's stepdad in the CW universe.
Really?
So the whole thing was eventually John Diggle was going to be Green Lantern. So he's going to be.
Oh, right.
His stepdad was Major Stewart. He was this tough, hard-ass Marine drill sergeant. And so if they had gone forward, he would have been, John Diggle Stewart, John Stewart Diggle, however you want to frame it.
Yeah.
And they did the whole stupid storyline with him with the ring that they knew they were never going to pay off because they don't have that kind of money for effects on the CW. But Ernie Hudson kind of related to Jon Stewart in a roundabout way.
Yeah. Missed opportunities. We should add see if we can help out Michael Jai White's agent. Here's a bunch of low-key properties he should be going after.
Yes.
I know Spawn didn't work out well, but
Icon, if they ever brought the Milestone universe to the big screen, I think Michael Jai White could play a good Icon.
Yeah, no, that's. Oh wait, Michael Jai White was in one of the CW shows, wasn't he? Wasn't he Bronze Tiger?
Yeah, he was Bronze
Arrow?
Tiger. Bronze Tiger on Arrow. Yeah, and he was good in that.
In terms of action sequences in this movie, they're very well done. But I guess the pinnacle is the raid on Kung Fu Island, then followed by the battle in the White House.
Yes, that's how crazy this movie is, Brent. If I go without watching the movie for a while, it'll take me a second to remember, Kung Fu Island is not the end of the movie. We still got to go beat up Richard Nixon and smack around Mrs. Nixon for a little bit.
To this very day, I will occasionally quote if I'm playing a video game or something like that, where a grenade gets thrown. I will occasionally say, "I threw that shit when I was in the other room."
Yeah, that's a great little bit that keeps coming back a couple times. It makes no sense because that's not how physics work. Like if you throw something like that, it doesn't just come back. But yeah, that's a great bit. I love how, again, it's the drop at the beginning of this podcast, Brent, where Black Dynamite and the crew they figured out the story. They figured out that the government is using malt liquor to shrink black men's penises on these streets, and so they do a raid. They destroy the compound, and then Black Dynamite gets a communication from the fiendish Dr. Wu, and he's like, "Fellas, we taking a boat ride." And then we get the dramatic zoom to Kung Fu Island, and it's like, can this movie get any crazier? The answer is yes, Brent.
Yes, and so some of the action shots that they use for this and for the Vietnam flashbacks with Black Dynamite are from Missing in Actions 1 and 2. They're like just footage that they used from it. But I love how like slowly Black Dynamite's team gets taken out like almost one by one. It just ended like by the end of Kung Fu Island, it's him and cream corn.
Yeah, like I love the crew, and there's even a song like before they raid the compound, like they have a little montage set to a song called "Cleaning Up the Streets."
Oh yeah, "Cleaning Up the Streets" is awesome.
Dynamite and his crew are gonna do what they have to do. I'm cleaning up the streets. Every pusher and hustler in town is gonna mow them all down. Cleaning up the streets. Now the mob and the politicians can get together. Mess with Dynamite. It's gonna be stormy weather. Sell drugs and make that breed. It's gonna wipe you off the scene because it's cleaning up the street. Said it's cleaning up the street. Oh, cleaning up the street. Raphael's pulling the job. Dynamite is bugging the bar. Cleaning up the street. Mongo James is the promised vector. Three points just stole the ledger. Cleaning up the street. Now this big time drug dealer is flying high. Black Dynamite, big you superstar. Three points just blew apart. Cleaning up the street. Cleaning up the street. Yeah. Cleaning up the street.
Yeah, a great song. Like I actually had it on my iTunes playlist back in the day, and just had it in a random shuffle and whenever it popped up, I was like, "That was a good song." And the singer of the song is the gentleman that played Curtis, the father on the Tyler Perry show, House of Pain. It's a little bit of trivia. I forget the gentleman's real name, but he plays Curtis on House of Pain. And so, like the lyrics, Black Dynamite and the crew, they got to do what they got to do. The line that gets me every single time, because they're showing the clips, obviously, that correspond to the lyrics. And it's like, well, you think you're a superstar. Cream Corn just shot up your car. You were cleaning up the streets. And then the other one is like when Black Dynamite shoots a helicopter out of the air, not with a missile, but with a pistol. And he's like, this big time drug dealer is flying high. Black Dynamite just shot his black ass out the sky. And it's just like, this movie is ridiculous. In the best way, Brent.
Oh, I completely agree. So we get to Kung Fu Island, and is that the end of it? Like we get a good like martial arts battle between Black Dynamite and the fiendish Dr. Wu, and you're like, oh, that's gotta be nope. He's got to take it all the way to the top and that is
Yes.
the president of the United States.
Hold on, Brent. Let's circle back. Let's circle back because
Okay.
I don't want to gloss over the late great fiendish Dr. Wu, because I feel like it was pitch perfect. Like, for that kind of character for that time period, like, the actor nailed it. And then obviously him and Michael Jai White had really good chemistry. Like, the perfect over-the-top stereotypical cartoonish villain that would appear in a film, back in the 70s. I liked fiendish Dr. Wu as kind of our mini boss before we get to the big boss.
Yeah, so fiendish Dr. Wu is played by Roger Yuang. I'm gonna. So I apologize if I mispronounce it. Which it would sort of make sense that they have a bit of chemistry because guess what movie he was a stunt double and coordinator on?
Could it have been the cinematic masterpiece known as Spawn?
The cinematic masterpiece known as Spawn. He's worked on like tons of other movies too, but that would be the one where I can like definitely see the connection between the two, as well as like it. Like, interestingly, he has also done. He's in Outlaw Johnny Black. I didn't know that. But he is also like one of the fight coordinators on Dune 1 and 2. Oh wow! Yeah, he's moved up in the world in terms of movies. Yeah, he was also an actor in Venom, so maybe we'll let it pass.
I mean, a check is a check, Brent Chinden.
No, that's true. It's to go off on another team.
He's got to take the Venom check so that way he can, do Outlaw Johnny Black for what I'm presuming was not a lot of money.
Yeah. To go off on a slight tangent in terms of stunt people, you ever watch videos by that group, Corridor Crew? It's usually like visual effects artists react to, but they also do stuntmen react to.
Okay, no, I haven't
three
seen
guys. The stunt ones are the ones that I like because one of the guys that they get is the guy who does doubling for did stunt doubling on like Black Panther and like Falcon stunts in the various Marvel movies and stuff like that.
Okay,
and when you talk about like a stunt guy just taking a paycheck, there's one video where in particular they're showing a scene from one of the Michael Bay Transformer movies. And you would think it's sort of a simple one. It's a bus is getting lifted up by either a Decepticon or something, and people are falling, like it's sideways, and the stunt guys are following through the bus, like through the windows and stuff like that. And this is like a stunt thing that like weirdly they were taking like 3 days or 4 days to shoot. And this guy is like, he's just watching like all of his friends who are stuntmen on this just go to the hospital like one by one. And he's like, oh, is today the day? Is this the day I need to go get stitches, or I bust my leg because like you're falling from like one side of the bus from the window out through the other. And before I guess there was a day pause. He gets the call to work on Black Panther. Is like, see you guys later. Yep. Because it was like a stunt coordinator job with a better paycheck.
Yep. Oh, Michael Bay.
Yeah. So the end battle is a kung fu battle between Black Dynamite and Richard Nixon.
Yes. Richard Nixon, former president of the United States. We all know him famously for the Watergate scandal, but maybe more important than that, Brent Chittenden, in the 70s, 60s and 70s, he was known in the black community as the man. Like the head white guy in charge is always the man, Brent. Spoiler alert, I'm letting you into some of the secrets of the community. But there was no man, maybe not until Donald Trump, that was more of the man. Maybe Ronald Reagan. Like, that's the medal stand. Reagan, Nixon, and Trump. Like, if you think of the man who is putting things in place to harm the black community, Richard Nixon is winning like a gold medal in the Man Olympics. And so it just made sense that who would be behind this fiendish plot? It's not Dr. Wu, even though Dr. Wu doesn't like black people. It's got to be Richard Nixon and the U.S. government. And so to go all the way there and to have this fight in the White House with an actor who is doing a damn good Richard Nixon impersonation. I thought it just hit the perfect note, Brent, of yes, this makes sense in the narrative of the story, but it's also insane and ridiculous, and I love it.
Yeah, and I just, like, out of curiosity, I was looking to see, like, what this guy had done in terms of parts before kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not a lot. Like, my thought was like, oh, this guy's played Nixon in like a half a dozen movies. Like, I always go back to, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah.
The guy who played Abraham Lincoln in that plays like Abraham Lincoln in like a bunch of other things. It was just like, that was his thing. He just looked like, a version of Abraham Lincoln, but like, weirdly, he doesn't have any parts like that. He's like, on IMDb, it's mainly as a writer, and his acting parts, there's 6 of them listed, but nothing I really recognized other than the child film classic Like Mike from 2002, where apparently he plays Mr. Williams.
Okay. I remember Like Mike. I do not remember Mr. Williams, so he must not have left a great impression on me, Brent.
This is weirdly, like, as you were saying, this makes sense, right? As a final battle.
Yeah. Like Richard Nixon is like, and this is another tangent, but that's what we do as we travel to Kung Fu Island, even though I guess we're here now. But I think, like, going back and listening to a lot of music from that time, Brent, just how much of it was soul singers of the day taking shots at Richard Nixon in various, like, whether it's explicit or veiled. Like Stevie Wonder had 2 songs. One was Mr. Know-It-All, which was about Nixon, and then the other one was You Haven't Done Nothing with the Jackson 5, where he's just talking about, like, how terrible of a leader Richard Nixon is and how much of a liar Richard Nixon is, and how he's the worst person on the planet. And so it's like, yeah, like, black people, spoiler alert, black people really hated Richard Nixon back in the day.
Everybody should have.
Yes.
Like, not like black people especially, but like I remember seeing the PBS documentary on Vietnam, and you just realize how much of a clusterfuck that was all the way through, and like how he like just wouldn't give it up towards the end of it and made it even worse. So as we come to sort of the conclusion with our first film, do you think there was a missed opportunity here in terms of not doing further sequels? Like, we have like a spiritual sequel in Outlaw Johnny Black, and there was the cartoon series, but there's no like straight ahead like sequel to this movie.
Well, before I answer that question, Brent, I think we do need to give a tip of the cap to a president who was far better than Richard Nixon, and that is the president who came in and gave Black Dynamite the assist in the final battle. The ghost of Abraham Lincoln shows up to help Black Dynamite beat Richard Nixon in maybe one of the longest callbacks in movie history, because in the first act of the film, Black Dynamite says something to the effect of, I bet that on Richard Nixon's ghost or something like that. Or Abraham Lincoln's ghost. And an hour and a half later, the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, once again, showing up for black people, helps Black Dynamite defeat Richard Nixon. And then we get the scene where Mrs. Nixon, who is played by...
from Mad TV.
Mad TV, yes. She's great in this little tiny role.
Yeah, and Nicole Sullivan.
I can't even remember her name. Yes, Nicole Sullivan. Yeah. So he's like, I didn't mean to pimp slap you like that, First Lady. And like, we get the scene from the cover art of the movie where Black Dynamite's holding a gun and he's got the 2 women. He's got his girl that he's been chasing the whole film on one leg and Mrs. Nixon on the other. But to your question, Brent, your actual question, I feel like, yes, just from a fan's point of view, from somebody that really enjoys this movie, I would have loved to see them continue to do this. But I think with your evaluation of Michael Jai White, like how serious he is and how much he puts into these films, I don't know if you can replicate the magic of Black Dynamite, and do you dilute it by trying to do sequels? And so maybe that's why, like you said, with Outlaw Johnny Black, we're doing kind of the spiritual successor thing. A lot of the same actors are coming back, and it's got a similar vibe, but it's not Black Dynamite. We're in the Wild West. And so I wouldn't be mad if he kept doing this, like make it a series of films in this, like, kind of, I guess, Monty Python-ish sort of in some respects. Or there's a show on now on TBS or TNT that I can't remember, but it's like the same actors in every season, but they're playing different characters and kind of continuing the story. Like they're in medieval times, or they're in the future, or they're like it's different time places, but always the same actors. Like if he decided to do a bunch of that, I think I'd be happy if they're all done with the same kind of care as Black Dynamite. What about you? Like, do you think there was an opportunity to do Black Dynamite 2 Electric Boogaloo?
If it had gotten a good sized budget, because I think that like weirdly enough, that like, because this movie ends with him fighting a president of the United States and like a helicopter blowing up and like all this stuff, you kind of like, for the sequel, you definitely have to go bigger, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what that bigger would have been. I don't think they could straight out do it with Outlaw Johnny Black because of it sounds like because of a producer issue with Black Dynamite. Is I kind of feel that the other option, which they're sort of doing, was that he was going. What's the football player that he plays? Who plays
Ferrante Jones?
Yeah. So the idea would be like him playing this former football player / actor in a sequence of different movies, right? Like not the same character, but might as well be. And like Jim Kelly's like that, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's such a great joke because, like you said, you had Jim Kelly and Fred Williamson and all of these former football players in that era, Jim Brown, that were like, I don't know why I just mixed up Karate Jim Kelly with Buffalo Bills Jim Kelly, who is not a black football player. But Jim Brown and Fred the Hammer Williamson and guys like that were like, we can make more money doing these films than playing football because the NFL wasn't really paying guys at that time. And so, I love that. Like I said, Brent, that's one of my favorite jokes in this whole film is that it's Ferrante Jones in his first major role, fresh off of the Indianapolis Colts, trying to be an actor surrounded by all this craziness.
Yeah, like the thought of like Jim Kelly is the prime example because in terms of like characters as an actor, Black Belt Jones and his character in Enter the Dragon, not a heck of a lot of difference. It's basically kind of him in just different movies, right? Although I would have liked to have seen Jim Kelly in a Western. Yeah.
It's funny because the last movie I remember seeing Jim Kelly in was Undercover Brother with Eddie Griffin.
Oh, yeah.
Where Eddie Griffin like has to infiltrate again, another kind of blaxploitation-ish kind of film where Undercover Brother has to infiltrate the man and figure out what white America is doing to destroy the black community. And he gets brought into the Brotherhood, and while he's walking through the halls of the Brotherhood, he just walks by Jim Kelly, who gives him a black fist. And it's like, he's like, "Hey, Jimmy." And it's like, that's it. That's all we get of Jim Kelly in this movie, but it was cool to see Jim Kelly.
Yeah. So that brings us to the end of the Black Dynamite episode. Any final thoughts that you'd care to share with our audiences before we preview what's coming up next?
Yeah, well, so I don't know why you're trying to turn this vacation into work, Brent.
That's what I do, Nick.
Like you and Brian Mann have a very similar. All I wanted to do was take a vacation to outer space, like Elon Musk, and Brian had me watching WCW back in the day. And all I wanted to do was have a vacation here, Brent, and take this boat ride, which historically hasn't ended well for my people. But I thought I'd take a chance, Brent, and I thought I'd take a chance, Brent, and here we are. You got me doing work on vacation time, but I think like this is going to be a fun series, Brent. I love the kind of through line of all of these movies. Like they're different films, but they all have the through line of Kung Fu Island, and I'm excited about some of the films that we're going to talk about this season or this series, depending on if we get renewed or not. We got to talk to Feige about that to see if we get picked up for season 2. But in terms of Black Dynamite, I'm glad we started with this one, Brent, because, and this is no disrespect to any of the other films that we're going to talk about, which I all either like or love in varying degrees. Like this is by far my favorite of the bunch because it's a cult classic in some respects, but it certainly deserves, a wider audience. So maybe by folks listening to this episode, it'll encourage them to pick up the DVD or the Blu-ray, which I can't imagine is too expensive, and watch this film. I saw the
Blu-ray on Amazon for like $15.
You got $15 out there.
Yeah.
You got $15 for Michael Jai White and all this hard work the team put in. But yeah, like this is a really fun movie. Like we could be here all night, Brent, going through individual performances. Sally Richardson. Like I didn't want to leave the podcast without her giving her flowers. Playing like the love interest of Black Dynamite. And like there's so many great scenes. The scene where he flips out, like, I'm gonna send you back to Crenshaw Pete. Like that's like it's so many good little moments in this film if you have not seen Black Dynamite, check it out because just hearing, if you've been listening to me and Brent talk about it and both of us love this movie, I think we're both pretty decent barometers to kind of gauge things on. We don't have wild takes out here on cinema, so check it out because I think it's a love letter to blaxploitation, but it's also something that's extremely funny and ridiculous. And you can watch it. You can watch it in various states, Brent. You can watch it sober. You can watch it high. You can watch it drunk. You can watch it early in the morning. You can watch it at 2 a.m. and it's gonna hit every time because it's so well crafted. So those are my thoughts on Black Dynamite. What about you, Brent?
I have loved this movie since the first, and it's one of those movies that I recommend to people. Like my boss is one of those people. We were talking to about like blaxploitation movies and stuff like that. I'm like, have you seen Black Dynamite? He's like, no. I'm like, oh, dude. And then like I'm lucky in my work for the music in our store. We use Spotify. And for any of you who are out there interested, the entire score and all the songs from this movie are available to listen to on Spotify. So if you don't want to like pony up the money and buy yourself a copy of this, you can easily stream it. And it is so good. And like I said, I feel that Michael Jai White, like, hopefully he starts like, maybe he's in a good third act where with Outlaw Johnny Black and everything else that he's doing, that he'll like get another go at the big time. But if not, like this movie is going to stand up for years to come. So
yeah, is Outlaw Johnny Black available now?
It is for you guys. I believe it is on Amazon Prime in the US. Unfortunately, because I looked.
I'm laughing, Brent, because I was gonna make a Tropic Thunder. What do you mean, you people joke? But you didn't set me up right.
I just hope people realize, because they won't see us like looking at each other laughing. They're like, oh, how uncomfortable is Brent right now?
I think that's another thing I love about this film, Brent. Like it's like 100% unapologetically black, but it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
something that I feel is like off-putting. And nor should it be, but like I feel like it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, from Iceland. I don't know if people in Iceland are listening, but like anybody can watch this film and have a good time with it. So yeah, check it out if you haven't. If you're in the States, check out Outlaw Johnny Black. That's what I'm going to do, Brent. Now that I know it's available in the States,
I'm pretty sure it is.
Support
it's not
Michael Jai
available
White.
anywhere up here other than, I think maybe iTunes carries it or Apple Movies or whatever it's called now. I haven't updated my app, so it still says iTunes Store on my. For our next episode, Nate, I know you like sports. I know you like watching sports like football and stuff like that, but they don't have football on Kung Fu Island. Unfortunately, that's not a thing.
So what are we going to watch, Brent? You dragged me out here on this boat cruise. What are we going to watch?
So when we get to Kung Fu Island, there's a tournament going on.
Okay.
And
Like March Madness, like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, right?
Kind of, except with more kicking and people doing the splits and punching other guys in the balls.
Okay, so nothing like March Madness.
I don't watch basketball. Yeah, it's called flipping through my. It's called Blood Sport. Oh, Blood Sport. It's one word, Blood Sport.
Okay, capital B, capital S,
Yes.
or capital B and lowercase s.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of guys just punching each other.
Okay, is this Fight Island that Dana White tried to do during the pandemic? Is that where we're actually going?
It very well could be. And for our listeners, go to the Patreon of Kings of Sport or True North Nerds or both of us in order to find out what we're talking about.
Yes. Well, speaking of those destinations, Brent, we started a journey here. Let's end the journey by making sure that we have some comfy coffers, I guess I'd say. You know, I want the bank stuffed when we get back, Brent, because we're going to be spending a lot of money on this trip, even though you got a great deal from Groupon. But if the listeners like what they've heard so far in this first episode, which is free to everybody, and they would like to support us a little bit more with what we're doing at both of our enterprises, where can they find you on social media, Brent, and tell them about the Patreon?
So for all my stuff on Twitter, I am at BC Nerdhole. For as long as I'm on Twitter, it is slowly becoming a little bit of a hellscape, and I made it. It's a promotional thing for me, and it's a way that weirdly, it's the way I communicate with Nate most of the times is through Twitter.
Yes.
So there's that. TrueNorthNerds.com is the landing page that will direct you to all the places where you can find True North Nerds, the podcast, including our Patreon, patreon.com/True North Nerds, where you will get the remainder of this series, as well as a series called Listen to This, which coincidentally Nate has been on. And that is one of our few free shows of that you can also check out on the True North Nerds feed, where Nate and I talk, and my co-host Alex talk about Outcast for a good hour. So there's that. And then there's also the Kings of Sport. And where can people find you, Nate? I'll take my break now because I know you've got a million podcasts going on. But where can people find your main ones?
Yes, I'll let you kick back here on the deck of the boat. Enjoy a nice, refreshing, ice cold Anaconda malt liquor, Brent. I don't know what effects it has on
you. Woo.
Yes, Anaconda liquor gives you woo. I don't know what effect it has on non-black drinkers, though. But
For all you
maybe
black folks out there,
maybe they're saving that for the sequel.
Oh my! Wait, there's a sidebar. Ric Flair's energy drink, Woo Energy. Maybe just a PSA. Maybe people should look into it a little bit more if this reality, if this malt liquor thing is anything to be researched upon.
Yes. So one last thing about Black Dynamite. One of my favorite props in movie history So they have one guy that he's just drinking Anaconda malt liquor through the whole show. And then when they do the raid, he's like got a case of Anaconda malt liquor. He goes back to the house. He's drinking. When they find him the next day, his penis has been shrunken by drinking that much Anaconda malt liquor. And they do a jump scare almost into his quote unquote penis. And it's actually a baby pacifier that they painted to look like a shrunken penis. And I'm like, you know what? Normally I don't go for like the low hanging fruit gags, Brent, but that's one that gets me every time.
Oh, every once in a while, there's one that like just nails it, right?
But yes, so for something that will give you woo but will not shrink your penis, check out the Kings of Sport Patreon. That's a segue there, Brent Chittenden. $5 gets you in the door. $5 for over 300 hours of audio and video from the Kings of Sport, which is me, Chris from LA, the good professor, Two-Way Ray, our producer, Andrew Thompson, the nephew, and Marcus Vanderberg, the invisible light-skinned partner of the Kings of Sport, who it gets one day a year to kind of commune with us, but he's always in the background. You can check us out. We talk about sports, politics, pro wrestling, MCU reviews. We got a couple of those up on the Patreon. $5. We'd appreciate it if you check this out, because the more income we get on that front, the less time I have to spend at the shoot job and the more stuff we can do. Speaking of more stuff we can do, we've got a couple new shows up at the Kings of Sport now. The Avenge Hers Initiative with myself, Brittany Monet, and Jennifer Smith talking about the MCU from a female-led perspective, and then the Spinning Black Fist podcast, which is an MMA show hosted by Two-Way Ray and Chinyere Okafor, who is a combat sports journalist from South Africa. So we got a lot of stuff out there. For me, check me out on Twitter at @8 MOZAIK at Nate Mosaic, and Cospod on Twitter, KOS_POD. And we've got merchandise too. Chop Tees, chop-tees.com. Shout out to Dickie Bird. Who knows? Maybe depending on how well Kung Fu Island goes, we might have some Kung Fu Island merch next year. But are we ready, Brent? Are we ready to move deeper and deeper into this journey and see what Kung Fu Island is all about, my friend?
I am ready if you are, good sir.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this installment, this leg of the journey here at Kung Fu Island. But we'll be back to talk about this blood sport thing Brent just mentioned to me that I am unaware of. But yeah, follow both of us on socials. Check out both of our Patreons. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back to do it again next time on Kung Fu Island. So, for Brent Chittenden, I am the Godfather, Nate Milton. Good night, Cream Corn, wherever you are. Because we just took a trip to Kung Fu Island. I guess that's how we'll end it from now on. At least until we think of something better.
That sounds good.
that kind of money.